What's going on, y'all? My name is Troy Scarlett, jazz drummer, jazz major, and I just kind of wanted to make a video in which we listened to "The Only Thing I Fear Is You," my Mick Gordon off the Doom Eternal OST, and just from kind of like the jazz drummer perspective, I kind of like break it down. We just listen to it, gush about how great it is and like what I love about it. Now I'm not just a jazz drummer. I am a composer and music producer as well. So, those there are aspects in those kind of fields that I also feel are relevant. So you're going to be getting a little bit of that from me as well. Just kind of like just over an overall breakdown, honestly. So yeah, without any further ado, we're gonna start right from the top. I was already listening to it just a little bit, but yeah, I just felt it necessary to start over again. So already, like what we're getting, first thing I'm noticing, right? Holy, listen to how thick these drums are. Everything's super deep. Like though that kick is punching you in the freaking face, man. That snare is smacking you in the face, right? And like the cymbals, they're not really so into the mix, but like they're present enough, amidst like all like the really thick sounding guitars and bass and all that stuff, that it still has like a punch. It adds a little bit of like flavor to the punch. It's kind of like ice cream versus like whipped cream. Like they're still both cream, but like the whipped cream is like a little softer. It's just like it's barely there, but like it's noticeably there. That kind of thing. um it's literally the cherry on top. So yeah, no, the drum mix is like so important here. Another thing, the drum groove is absolutely phenomenal. Like, like that's something that like most drummers would have fun playing. That's my kind of rating scale for drum grooves. Is like mainly based on two things, right? How good does it sound? Like how fun is it to listen to, and how fun is it to play? All right. They're not like mutual things, or rather, they're not things that like need to kind of go hand in hand. Like it can be fun to play, but not that great sounding, or it can be the other way around. Great sounding, not fun to play. Either way, those are two. There's still like very important factors to me. This is both. This sounds great, and it's fun. It's a fun groove. So yeah, no, I just have to give it to like right off the bat. Um, oh my god, the production. Like, what can I say about the production? It hasn't been said already, but like, damn, man. We're gonna continue. That synth sounds like a thick kind of super saw. There's like a scream to it. There's like a screechiness to it. My favorite part right here. Oh my god, man. Come on. Are you serious? Like, oh my lord. Okay, so like there's so much happening here, right? There is this like universal constant, at least in my eyes. The more syncopated something is, the better the quarter notes like sounds. Like if you just like throw in a quarter note there, everything just feels so much more locked in. You know, like if you're playing like in jazz, right? They say like the quarter note. The reason why we have like a bassist that just like walks the quarter note all the time, no matter what, it's because jazz is such a syncopated genre. You have like everything on the and or like on like the 16th note on like whatever. But if you have that bass is dum 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 boom boom dum 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 boom boom boom, you know. Another thing, like if you're playing on drums and like you're just playing that ride and you're just locking in with the bass note, that allows for the horn player, you know, to just kind of like, or like whoever's soloing, they just kind of go a little bit like more wild, kind of explore around in these like more like in these rhythmic worlds, I guess, you know, just like the vastness and like all the possible variety you can throw in there. Um, so here we have like a super syncopated groove, you know. That's basically like the base of the groove, right? We're not hitting one at all, right? So what do? You just lock in on like that splash cymbal, or I think it's either a splash cymbal or hi hat. I can't tell. We just right, and after that, what that does, that locks everything in. You know, that lets like the listener's ears kind of like have something to follow. After that set, your brain's heard that. It knows what it's like listening for. You know, that's the pulse. Now that that's established, the drums are allowed to kind of mess around a little bit. Like you already know like where to be. You know, like you can see the path ahead of you. Now that you know that path, you're allowed to kind of like, you know, take a little bit of a trip to the left or to the right a little bit, you know? And that's what the drums are doing here. So after kind of setting that groove, and then they start filling in like they start messing around. That's just something that drummers do, you know. We have a job that is to basically play the same thing over and over again, you know, especially in, you know, like pop music, more like groove based music. What they need is the groove, you know. And anytime you get to throw in a little bit of variation in there, it's just for fun, you know. It's just a little some, you know. But like in a genre so energetic, you know, and like it's something like that's just so fun as this, you get to go a little wild, you know, like that's like what the great drummers like love to do, you know, like they set in the groove and then they start playing around, they start like hitting all kinds of crazy fills that like there's an argument nowadays that what is it? Modern drummers play too many notes, right? My counter, we're not necessarily counter argument. My thing is, you can play all the notes you want as long as you've established the groove, right? The audience needs to know where the groove is, right? If they don't know where the groove is, then you're not doing it right, okay? If all you're doing is playing all these notes and the audience has no idea like what to lock into, what's the point? You know, you're not doing your job as a drummer. So, like I mentioned earlier, we established the groove here. Now we get to mess around. You know, we get to have a little bit of fun. You know, so we're gonna run that part back, right? Yeah. Lock in the groove. Okay, mess around. Lock in. Mess around. Woo! Yeah. Yeah. Can we talk about the production here, man? I love Mick Gordon. I love his sound. I love the sound that he's established for this game because it's so layered. Everything is so full. It's the perfect use of compression. It's like everything that you would ever use it for, you know? Everything sounds so full, but there's so many layers, there's so many moving parts. The drums are doing their thing, the guitars are doing their thing, but then you have like this little synth right above everything that's kind of just like adding a little bit of spice. You know, like it's a little bit more of kind of a timbre difference, you know, just a little bit more seasoning, more flavor in there, you know. So that way you're just not getting the same thing over and over again, you know. Your ears don't really get tired of anything because it's finding new things to listen to. That's genius. That's good composition mixed with good production. A good music is the perfect combination. Not really the perfect combination, but like just at least a great combination of good production and good composition, right? You can have like all the technical production skills in the world. You can know what every knob does, know how to make any sound, whatever. None of that matters if your composition is bad. Like if there's nothing in it that like my ear wants to follow and like enjoys hearing, then what's the point? You know? That's the point of structure. That's like melody, chords, music theory, all of that stuff. That's compositional aspects. That stuff is important. Now, you can technically get away with being a great composer and not a great producer. One such example, and I'm saying this in the nicest way possible, Toby Fox, right? Composer for Undertale. He is not the greatest producer, right? I think we can all agree he's not super great at production. He uses his sound fonts. He knows how to layer things, all that stuff. Not everything's mixed very well. There's a lot of everything's pretty simple. But he's such a great composer that he can get away with that. So in a way, composition is a little bit more important than production in that aspect. But this music right here, I think, is a really good example of the great balance between both. I love that kind of stuff, and that's why I appreciate about this whole soundtrack and this song especially. It's just such great composition. All this production stuff is like, it's just a cherry on top, really. But also, this composition wouldn't sound this good if it wasn't for the production. Like the production and the composition, like they mix together so well. They are so important to each other in music like this. This industrial metal. Just like this super heavy, super layered, super loud, super loud kind of music. So yeah, no, I just felt that was important to mention, right? That cutoff before we come back in with everything, perfect. That's good composition, stuff like that, man. Now we're back to this, So what the repetition of that does is that it kind of establishes it as like a chorus in some way. You know how songs have like their verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge, yeah, right? The chorus is the part that repeats the most. It's the part that like I would walk 1,000 miles, yada yada yada. That part, right? That's the chorus, okay? And you establish that the only reason that works is because they repeat it so much. That's what makes your brain remember it. That's how like catchy songs work. That's how good melodies work. So now they've done a little bit of a different thing. They've repeated this riff now, and they're repeating that melody, that thing. Okay, cool. That's our second time hearing that. Now we know that's important. That's like the theme. All right, moving on. Variation. Variation is extremely important, like I mentioned earlier. After repeating that second part and then they cut off that last half before bringing the chorus back, that's variation. Variation is very important because what does variation do? It stops you from being repetitive. Repetition is important. Variation is just as important because you can't have one thing just repeat over and over and over again. You're going to get sick of hearing it, So that's the importance. That's compositional stuff. That's more compositional stuff. And you can get variation through production aspects. It can be as simple as turning something down or turning something louder. Stuff like that. That's what I mean with all this stuff. It's just so important. This is just such a great example. I'm sorry I'm going to sound like I'm glazing the song the entire video, but that's because I am. It's that good of a song, Even the sound of the guitar is different. There's that synth that not that synth that melodic line that we heard earlier. But so now we know that's important as well. Um, Again, more variation. It's different than the first time we heard it. High pass filter, right? Now we're building towards something, like now we're through just the conditioning of listening to music, at least Western kind of like American music. This is where you expect like, oh, maybe there's gonna be like a drop coming in, something's gonna happen. We're losing our lower frequencies, right? That have been so prominent this entire song so far. Something's about to happen. What's that? What is that? What's the word for that? Subversion. It's subversion. We're subverting expectations. You know, we expected the drop to come back. We expected like a big hit there after that high pass filter, but no, right? We're back, but it's not in the way that we expected it to be. Okay, this is something different. That's also important. Subversion is a little bit more complicated. It's a little bit more technical because you need to know what the listeners are going to expect in the first place. But it's still important. You can get away with not using it, but using it makes your composition that much better. So yeah, man. No drums so far as well. We've lost our drums. So I don't really have anything to comment on there. But honestly, this music is already so percussive, just like in this rhythmic nature that you don't really need them. You still feel the groove. I love this synth so much, man. This synth sounds so cool. Super compressed, super gritty. Production. This is production right here. What I say earlier, right? What I say earlier. You're establishing like the feel, the groove. This is more like eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, but they feel so heavy that you don't even feel you're not even. This feels more like sped up quarter notes, like you're like double time quarter notes than it feels like eighth notes because everything's being hit with like such intensity. You're not getting that 1 and 2 and you're just getting that 1 and 2 and you're getting that kind of blast beat kind of feel. I know this isn't really technically blast beat, but like, man, it just feels that heavy, And so after establishing that groove, what are we gonna do next? Then we're gonna kind of deviate a little bit. We're gonna kind of mess around after that, right? Establishing. Mess around. We're back. We're playing around. Quarter note. Mess around. That's the philosophy of drumming, my folks. That's how it works. That's how it works. That's how we do it, And we're back. Variation, more subversion. There we go. That's what I love. This is the stuff that makes me go nuts, Oh, man, this is what makes me love a song. Stuff like this. There's a certain level to like the subversion and the variation, right? We've established that kind of that tone, just like that singular chord, just like that drone. I don't know what note that is. 1 second, actually. Right, so we got that D flat, E flat, yeah, E flat, right? We established that tone, right? And then after having that for literally the entire song so far, what do we do? We have that little walk down, you know. We have chordal variety. There's more chords here, okay? And I there's a lot of music that does this kind of stuff, and I I love I love when that happens, man. I love that in music. You know, when you have just like that that singular chord for so long, and then after establishing that, then you add more chords. You know, I love stuff like that. It kind of like subtle kind of reharmonization. That's probably not the word for it, but like I've done it in my own music, and it's just such a great tool to use. It's such a great tool. You know, we're gonna run that back just because I love how that feels. Change it. Now we're kind of transitioning. This is like this is a new thing, you know. This is different. We're coming out of um this repetition, you know, that we've been hearing so far. Like everything before this has basically just been variations on the same things, you know. This is completely different, which cues us into a transition. You know, we know that we're going to be going somewhere else now because things are new. New theme. I love these synths so much. They sound so cool. We still feel like we're building towards something. Whoa. Uh. Now it's like, whoa, where are we? Right? We're not even the same key. I don't even know where we are. Are we just like up? I have no idea. I don't know. Right? Because this is throwing us completely for a loop. We have no idea where we are. You know, this is a completely new thing. It feels almost like it doesn't have a core. It's something we need to lock into. Um, but the groove is still there. See how powerful the groove is, man. But like, yeah, like that too is like a compositional tool. You know, and it's just crazy. It's crazy how well that works here. Usually you would want to avoid that, but you know, it works in favor here. I imagine it's like a theme kind of thing, you know. It's a matter of context here. But we're still kind of flailing about. We're still falling. Now we're back. No, no, we're not. Again, we're establishing a new theme here. This is a new feel entirely, right? So what did we have before, right? Okay, what do we have here? Straight quarter notes, right? So now we've established an entirely new groove, or lack thereof. We don't really have any rhythm here. We're just pushing it. This to me just feels like just punching through, man. You're just kind of knocking at it right now. The snare is even deeper, right? Everything's deeper. It's lower. We have like this just this bow 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 bow. It's everything feels so much heavier. We're just dropping stuff at this point. We're not throwing things about like we were before. Things are just falling. So again, this is more compositional techniques. This is compositional aspects. But the heaviness of everything, how much deeper everything has gotten, that is helped by what? The production. Exactly. What is this? More variation. This is another theme. Again, these are compositional tools. These are composition and production tools that you can use. Listen to that. More variation. What's that we hear in the background, right? Marching snares. Okay, what do you think of? You think of army, right? You think of literal marching. Left, right, left, right, left, right. People screaming at you. Rip and tear. Yeah, man. And that's more contextual stuff. That is genius composition. And that's storytelling through composition. You don't really need motifs or anything like that. Like a lot of people have you assume, oh, you need to connect like this thing to this character or this thing to that character. Sure. You can have thematic motifs. They don't have to just be melodic. They can be anything. It could be like an instrument. It could be the vibe of something. Something sounds soft. Okay, it's this thing. Something sounds heavy. Okay, it's this thing. But you can also just use assumption. Assuming makes an ass out of you and me, but sometimes we're supposed to assume. Sometimes the function is to have us assume, So marching snare drums, right? Army. Cool. Army of what? They're heavy, they're mean, they're loud. Maybe they're demons. Maybe it's some other thing. Okay? We're being screamed at, rip and tear. All right? Rip and tear through what? Through the army. This is all assumption, I've never played Doom Eternal day in my life. I know nothing of the story of this game. I know a lot about this music. So, so maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. But that's composition for you, like that's music, that's art. You interpret. Maybe there's a truth to it, maybe there isn't. In this case, I believe there is. I believe there's an actual function to this. But yeah, that's the only thing they fear is you. There's plenty of like other stuff on this soundtrack that is just like just great work compositionally. BFG, Meat Hook is another great one. I really like the Doom Hunter. Where is it? There's also I can't remember the name of it. Super something. Super Gore Nest. Yeah, there you go. That's another really, really great track. But, I just wanted to talk about this one in particular, and just kind of take some time to listen to it with y'all and like kind of break down everything that's going on here because there's so much wonderful, wonderful work. Um, it's funny. I started recording this video uh under the assumption that I would be going into it like from a jazz perspective. I'd be comparing it to a lot of jazz stuff. And there is comparisons to be made here, but honestly, I went into this more from the perspective of a composer myself, a video game composer and producer, uh, and broke down those aspects more. Mainly just because I felt like they were more important. They're more interesting to talk about, and also to just know. This could be an educational thing. Some of you may not know this, so yeah. If you learned something, I'm glad. Let me know. I'll probably make more videos like this. I love making videos like this where I just like listen to something and talk about everything that's going on in it. So, uh, yeah, the song's over now. So, yeah, thank you guys for watching. You have a great rest of your day. Remember to drink water, stay hydrated. That's important. Not enough people do that. All right. Peace.